my motto, nothing's ever holding back.
Hello and welcome back to the Lone Road iRacing podcast, the show where we talk about the real journey of sim racing. The highs, the lows, the lessons learned, somewhere between the start lights and the finish line. Now, this week's episode is one I think nearly every iRacer experiences at some point, but very few people talk openly about it, and that is hitting the iRacing plateau. That strange phase where the early progress appears to stop. The numbers stop moving, you're not getting worse, but you're not getting better either. You're still racing, still finishing mid-pack, still doing okay. But deep down, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're starting to feel it. You're stuck. And if you've been there, you know exactly what I mean. Because the iRating plateau isn't loud, it's quiet. It creeps in slowly. And it can be one of the most frustrating phases in your entire iRacing journey. So today we're going to unpack it properly. What it really is, why it happens, why most iRacers misread it, and most importantly, how to break through it. We'll have a short mid-show word from our sponsor Outlap, and at the end of this episode we'll bring back the iRacing Agony Uncle segment, where we'll tackle a listener question about smurf accounts. That one might get a bit interesting. But first, let's talk about the iRacing plateau. Let's start with this, listeners and viewers. An iRating plateau is not failure. And I'm going to say that again. iRating plateau is not failure. And it's definitely not proof you've reached your limit. It's a development phase. Every single iRacer goes through it, so you're not alone in this subject and this experience. In everybody's early days, progress comes quickly. You learn the basics, you stop spinning, you survive races. You gain huge chunks of iRating. The first climb feels amazing. I'm just trying to remember how it felt for me, and yes, it does feel amazing. You go from rookie chaos to feeling like you actually belong on the track with other fellow iRacers. But then something changes. The gains slow, the jumps shrink, and the splits get tighter. And suddenly you're racing people who are, guess what, just as good as you. Not reckless, not wildly inconsistent, but solid. And that's when progress naturally slows down. I've had this myself across different seasons. There are phases where you feel like you're climbing a hill with momentum behind you. And then there are phases where it feels like you're walking on a treadmill. Lots of effort, but the same view. And that's the plateau. Not a wall, just a flat stretch of road. So why do most iRacers misread it? Here's where things start to go wrong. Because most iRacers completely misdiagnose the plateau. They assume something has got to be broken. Maybe they think, I've peaked, or I've lost it. Or the classic, the splits are just unlucky lately. Or when you misread the problem, you make bad decisions trying to fix it. This is when people start carping constantly, changing disciplines every week, and blaming setups. Chasing tenths instead of understanding races. You see drivers who were consistent suddenly becoming chaotic simply because they're trying to force progress. And ironically, that often makes the plateau last even longer. Because the plateaus aren't solved by panic, they're solved by clarity. The truth is, when your iRating stalls, it's really random. There is almost an underlying cause. Once you understood those, like every problem, everything becomes much easier to manage. So we're going to dig into the real reasons this plateau actually happens. And I'd say most plateaus come from a mix of these, not just one. The first point is shallow track knowledge. At first, knowing the layout appears to be enough. Brake here, turn here, survive. But at higher levels, depth matters. Understanding where grip evolves, where corners decide lap time, and where races are actually won. If your knowledge is only surface level, you hover in the same performance band. Point 2. Inconsistent inputs under pressure. You might be fast in practice, but races add pressure. Traffic, defence, starts and late race fatigue. And small inconsistencies creep in. Tiny steering corrections, slight brake variance, not enough to crash, but enough to stop your progress. And that's classic plateau territory. The third point is racing too much and learning too little. And this one is a huge point. You can race every night and still not improve. Because racing alone doesn't guarantee growth. Sometimes improvement requires a step back. Reviewing replays, driving slower sessions, and actually analysing your mistakes. Plateaus often happen when output stays high, but reflection drops to zero. Now, there's also something called mental autopilot, and it's a sneaky bugger. You're comfortable, you know the flow, you can finish races without massive effort, but you're no longer driving with intent, you're operating on muscle memory alone. And muscle memory maintains performance, it really evolves it. Growth needs to actually have some discomfort, and plateaus love comfort. Fear of losing iRating, and I'm definitely guilty of this one. This is the one almost nobody admits. Well, I'm putting my hand up, listeners and viewers, I'm definitely fear of iRating at some point. And believe it or not, it is incredibly common. Once you reach a certain number, you want to start protecting it. You lift earlier, you avoid risks, and skip races that you think are dangerous or you're not going to do well in. And slowly, subtly, your development stalls because you've shifted from chasing improvement to defending status. And that mindset can freeze progress for months. We're going to take a little quick pause here to thank the sponsor of the podcast, Outlap, and we're going to listen to their message. So we'll be right back for the second half of the main subject matter today. We're having a quick pause here to mention our sponsor, Outlap, who are supporting the podcast. Outlap is built around the side of sim racing we don't talk about enough. The focus, the preparation, and mental work that happens long before the race actually starts. It's not about hype or loud designs, it's about process, patience and showing up ready, whether that's in the rig or stepping away from it. If that side of sim racing resonates with you, you'll find Outlap quietly ticking along in the background. I want to thank Outlap again for sponsoring the podcast, and the link to their sim racing apparel store is in the show notes. Just want to mention Outlap again. Thanks for sponsoring this week's podcast. How to break through the iRating plateau then. The good news is this: plateaus are temporary, so that's really great news for us all, but only if you approach them correctly. Here are some of the most effective ways to move forward again. Number 1, change the goalposts. If your only goal is iRating, you'll feel stuck faster. Instead, shift to process goals. Cleaner races, better tyre management, smarter starts. When you chase behaviours instead of numbers, progress restarts naturally. Point 2, reduce volume but increase intent. Sometimes racing less actually helps more. Fewer races equals more focus. One intentional session can teach more than 5 autopilot ones. Treat some weeks as training blocks and not competition weeks. That shift alone can unlock growth. Point 3, commit to one car. Plateaus hate consistency, but improvement loves it. Sticking with one platform deepens feel, confidence and muscle memory, and that depth creates breakthroughs. Car hopping resets learning constantly. Point 4, study yourself honestly. It's always uncomfortable to do this, but it's one of the most powerful ways to improve. Watch your replays without ego. Not, was that unlucky, but what could I have done better? The drivers who break plateaus fastest are usually the most self-aware, not the most naturally talented. Point 5, embrace small wins. Plateaus really break with fireworks. They crack quietly. A slightly cleaner race, a smarter overtake, and a calmer lap 1 are some examples. Stack enough small wins and suddenly that number starts to shift again. There are signs that you're about to level up and get through the plateau. So here's something encouraging. Before most breakthroughs, there are signals. You might notice racers feel slower, not because you're slower, but because you're calmer. You handle traffic more naturally. You stop overthinking every corner. You finish races thinking, wow, that felt easy. That's often the precursor to a jump, because when control increases, results follow. And if you're in the phase right now, stay patient. You might be closer than you think for breaking through your plateau. Okay, listeners and viewers, we're at that point in the show where it's Agony Uncle time. So we'll be right back with this week's listener question. Right, let's finish with this episode with this week's iRacing Agony Uncle. And this one is a spicy one. A listener has wrote into the show asking about smurf accounts. Are they a real problem? Do they ruin iRacing? And is it ever justified? Were the three kind of questions the listener kind of asked. Now, for anyone unfamiliar, a smurf account is essentially a second account, usually created by an experienced driver, often racing lower splits than their true level. And the topic sits in a bit of a grey area, because not all smurfing comes from bad intentions. Some drivers do it to race with friends, start fresh and escape pressure, but the impact can still be real, especially in rookie and lower licensed series, because those environments are supposed to be learning spaces, and when highly experienced drivers enter them, it can distort the ecosystem. You get artificially strong competition, confused new drivers and unbalanced races, and that can damage confidence for people just starting out, and none of us want that. We've all been there. Excuse me. Now, personally, I think intent matters. There's a big difference between someone quietly running a second account for experimentation and someone farming easy wins for ego. One is understandable, the other harms the ladder. But ultimately, iRacing is still built on progression, and anything that disrupts the progression needs careful thought. If you're considering a second account, I'd always ask yourself, is this helping the community or just helping me? Because sim racing, and specifically iRating at its best, is when the ecosystem stays honest. So, my answer to you, the person who wrote into the show, me personally, I wouldn't have a smurf account. I enjoy iRacing and my iRating is where it is. As we've learned and listened on the podcast, the yo-yo system is there anyway. So you're going to have weeks where you dive bomb and you're going to have weeks where you progress, and eventually you race enough on iRacing and you'll be exactly where you're meant to be. So to close this week's episode, listeners and viewers, if you're currently in an iRating plateau, here's what I want you to remember. You're not broken, you're not stuck forever, and you're definitely not alone. Every long-term iRacer walks this stretch at some point. It's part of the road. The key is not to panic when the scenery stops changing. So stay patient, stay curious, stay honest with yourself. Because progress in iRacing is never going to be a straight line. It's waves, peaks, and yes, plateaus. But if you keep showing up with the right mindset, the road does open up again. And when it does, those breakthroughs feel even sweeter. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to follow, share it with a fellow iRacer, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, keep it clean, keep it smart, and enjoy the journey down the low road. Happy iRacing, and I'll see you on the track soon.
Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone. Whatever it takes, we push hard, never alone. I'm in the cockpit, the engines roar, hear me now. We're racing circles, got a hustle made a vow. Chasing victory, it's all or nothing on the track. Sweet is my motto, nothing's ever holding back. Whatever it takes, we're racing.